Going, everybody? It's your guy Wardy, and we're back at it with the latest New York Metropolitan post-game segment as the Mets have themselves a slugfest, rightfully so at Coors, winning this one by a final score of 9-1. And yes, the boys are back in a playoff spot. They have leapfrogged the Atlanta Braves today after the Braves were curb stomped, and a sweep that we saw there for the Milwaukee Brewers, winning today by a final score of 16-7. The Braves were floundering, the Mets needed this one, and Pete Alonso was the story of the day. In today's show, we're going to break down all of our initial reactions and a key breakdown inning by inning in this 9-1 victory, as we're going to get into the highlights for Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, Mark Vientos, and others. We have some key updates to get into on the bullpen, as Adam Ottavino isn't too happy that he might not be a Mets reliever a week from now. We're going to talk about Adam Ottavino, where he currently stands in this bullpen, and more here shortly. Then we're going to get into, of course, on the pitching end, what stood out. David Peterson, his first start in his hometown there against those Rockies. He was sharp over 5. We'll talk about his outing. On the offensive end, you get a hit, you get a hit, you get a hit. Every Mets batter had themselves at least one hit today, which we will gladly take. We're going to get into it all, as we always do, with our latest WardyNYM post-game segment, officially presented by America's #1 sportsbook at BetUS. Make sure to check them out today by clicking the link down below in the description. That way you too get a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits, up to $2,000 with our great friends at BetUS. But I want to see those W spam in the live chat right now, everybody. We got a lot to get into. We're going to break down this masterful ball game going in the Mets' way. We're going to get into some fun accolades on what Pete Alonso did for the first time in Mets history today, and what the Mets did offensively for the first time in regular season history. They broke some records today. I started some that you maybe would have never thought of before. Yoshima with the $2 in the chat says, back in the playoff spot, baby. F the Braves. You'll love to see it. Even if it only lasts a day, we will take it while it lasts. And again, everybody, we're not only going to get into everything about this ball game inning by inning, as we always do, getting your reactions, but I want to hear from you Mets fans, because I promised you all that we would be doing at least one call-in show this week. Today is a prime day to do exactly that, everybody. So once we are done with our individual segments on breaking down the ball game, getting into the key numbers, and getting into the latest updates, we will then pivot from there into our live callers segment that will be cut out after the fact of it being live. So my apologies in advance to my replay viewers. If you guys want a chance to call in or hear the live callers, make sure you chime in the live show when you get a chance to do so here on the WardyNYM platform for all your Mets news, rumors, breaking news, live shows, post-game coverage, your #1 stop for all those things in Mets land. And again, happy to hear from you Mets fans. I want to hear what you guys have to say, your key takeaways, your questions for me, if anything, in our live callers segment that we will be doing before we conclude the show. Gonna get to as many callers as they possibly can in a fairly short period of time. So again, folks, if you want to have your voice heard on the Mets, you want to say something about these Metsies here on the platform, stay tuned to the entire conclusion of the show. That way you have your chance to, in fact, call in. I'll show you guys the proper steps to call in just in a couple seconds, everybody. But again, enough of me lollygagging here. Let's take a quick look at the wildcard standings. They are officially updated. There we go, baby. Bang! Love to see it. The New York Metropolitans currently sit officially 3rd in the NL wildcard. This comes as the Padres, of course, rallied back in the 9th inning for a 2nd consecutive day, this time to sweep the Pirates, in which has been an insane run for the Padres. They simply do not lose. They have won 14 of their last 16. The Diamondbacks are right up there the same way. The Giants have won at least 10 of their last 13. Even after giving up a game-tying bomb to the Nationals in the 9th, they won in extras. Even with all those things happening, the Braves continue to lose. The Mets leapfrog. They are officially now back in a wild card spot for the first time in a couple days now. Hopefully they can stay afloat and stay there. We all know how tough the schedule is for the Mets towards the end of the month when you have that second West Coast trip, which is a joke in itself of scheduling, against the Diamondbacks, against the Padres. That is what we have going there. So yes, Mets back in the playoff spot. We love to see it the same way that we love to hear many of you guys do, at least the official WardyNYM post-game jingle. Shout out to Greg and Jordan with the official WardyNYM post-game jingle. As always, everybody, I want to see those reactions. Let's do a roll call here in the chat in just 1 second, everybody. Then we will continue on with the live show. If you're watching this live here on Twitter X right now, either on my personal Twitter or you saw the retweet from my bigger platform, thank you so much. But please know, as always, I will only be interacting with our live viewers here on YouTube. So make sure you head over to the channel if you haven't already. That way you guys get a chance to subscribe and have an impact here as we talk together all things Mets in this amazing community as they take down the Colorado Rockies once again by a final score of, yes, 9-1. How you doing, everybody? Let's get into it. Rebecca, great member. Steve, great member. How you doing? Alicia, Gino, John, Ethan, Robert, Zach, Thomas going up the list. G-Money, Dave, great friend, member as always. D-Mac, Michael Stroh, great member. How are you? Steve, great member. Alberto, Peter, Jason, everybody. Oshima, Straight Talk with Jack Graham, great member. Hines, Leroy, going up the list. Thank you all so much for taking the time today to hear your guy Wardy talk about the latest in Mets land. So without further ado, let's get into it all, folks, because as I mentioned, there are a lot of exciting things that came out of this 9-1 victory, but had everything to do at the core of it with Pete Alonso. So let's break it down. Let's get in this one. Final thing I will say, folks, we will get into the updates on Adam Ottavino later in the show because I have a lot to say on his comments heading into today's game versus how he performed today. We're going to talk about comparing and contrasting, and that makes sense. You know, should he be advocating for himself as much as he is right now in this bullpen? But I do have one key update for each and every one of you. Sadly, the game is going to begin in a rain delay there for the AAA Syracuse Mets, and that's an important game. And if you're wondering, Wardy, why is this game important? It's because our top pitching prospect, Brandon Sproat, is on the bump to make his AAA Syracuse debut. This is the flame-throwing Sproat who has quickly rise as a top 3, if not top 5 prospect in Major League Baseball currently when looking at starting pitching specifically. And now Sproat, who touches out and tops out, I don't know, 102 on the gun. He's going to finally have StatCast data that we can look at and break down, that we will tomorrow, assuming in either individual video or breaking down in our post-game segment how Sproat did the day before, which is today. So very excited. It is Sproat GOAT Day, baby, on the bump. One step closer for the Mets. Rookie right-hander, electrifying prospect to hit the bigs with the Mets potentially as soon as this season. Is that a guarantee? No, but is it a possibility? Yes. And if Sproat does well in a short sample size in Syracuse, that again is proving everything he needs to do before ultimately making the jump to the bigs. The only thing in the way is the Mets wanting to make sure that he stays healthy and that they don't want to rush him. That's basically that. All right, everybody. SR, thank you so much for the $5 haul. Grant, how you doing, you absolute beauty? Happy to have you in here as always. I want to take a moment of silence for the Braves dying in their own house, bulldozed by the Brew Crew. Let's all have a moment of silence. Let's put our heads down here just for a second. My condolences, Braves fans. Your season isn't over yet. Look, for all we know, you guys are still going to crack playoffs over the Mets. But for the time being, as we currently stand, the Mets are in a playoff spot, and we're never, and I mean never, going to complain about that reality. SR, thank you for the donation and the comment. Grant, how you doing? Love you, my man. Happy to have you in here. Retro, how are you as well? D-Mac, how you doing, everybody? And again, this was a Mets live today that did not feature Brandon Nimmo, who has been sadly a strikeout machine as of late, and they explode, as what was mentioned in the chat. You're absolutely right. As we heading into this ball game, this was the lineup for Carlos Mendoza and the Mets here. Let's read it off. Lindor batting first. We had Jose Iglesias in the 2-hole today. Was that successful against his former club in the Rockies? Newsflash, yes it was. We'll get into that. JD Martinez batted third over Jesse Winker in the DH spot again. JD was productive today, thankfully. Pete Alonso, a lot to say on Pete here shortly. Mark Vientos batting fifth at the hot corner. Mark had a good day both offensively and defensively that we'll get into. Terens, McNeil, Bader, Taylor, that is what your 1 through 9 was in this 9-1 victory. And now let's get into what was the key takeaways on the offensive end for this Mets team. How did they score 9 runs? And again, Pete Alonso, thank you for finally stepping up. We have seen Pete have some big blasts and some big hits throughout this road trip. Consistency has been an issue with Alonso all season long. However, it is always better to step up late than never. And in the case of Pete Alonso, he's finally doing exactly exactly that. We all just have to have fingers crossed that this continues beyond lesser clubs in the Colorado Rockies and Coors, mind you, and we see more of this hopefully heading into Seattle, which is going to be a very tough matchup against those Mariners and that electric rotation that we know is going to be far from easy to deal with. AZ with the $10 holla. Our final comment before we break down this ball game states, dominant victory in Coors. Swaggy V with a bomb. Were you up on those, bomb? Were you up on those loser bums? Wait, I'm all over the place. Swaggy V with a bomb. We're up on those losers, those bums known as the Braves. Get a series win in Seattle. Mets W, put in the books. The lack of commas and periods is what threw me off there, AZ. I apologize. Again, you're looking like me with the run-on sentence. I appreciate the donation, no less. Thank you so much for that. And again, let's continue to ride high. Let's roll. And again, take advantage. The Mets haven't taken nearly advantage of the lack of proper play from teams like the Atlanta Braves as of late. And the Mets took even a sliver more advantage of the scheduling, they would be in a much better spot than they currently are. No less, the Mets, who headed into today's game with a below 500 road trip record throughout this 10-game road trip thus far, the Mets thankfully are back to 500 on that front. And actually, my apologies, folks. Okay, so what? We are 4-3 now. We were 3-3 after the victory yesterday. Now, again, if the Mets sweep the Mariners, they will have a 7-3 road trip. Or if they do what I think they're going to do that I predicted heading into the road trip on SNY New York Post a while ago, was that the Mets would go 6-4 throughout this 10-game stand. And I firmly believe that to still be the case. And fingers crossed that the Mets get themselves a series victory against those Mariners. All right, I digress. Hog Wardy, let's go, my man. Let's effing go San Diego. No. I cannot wait to have our post-game live shows with myself and Borna when we match up later this month, because both teams are riding high. Padres simply can't lose ball games right now, but they have a tendency to lose to the Mets. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to match up. Speaking specifically on this season, not the 2022 wild card. That is absolutely irrelevant. I don't know why I'm bringing it up. Speaking of good things, at least, that is not the Padres, but is the Mets, and it is Francisco Lindor, as Lindor kicks off the ball game with his 28th double of the season. Doubles would be a common trend against Gomber, as the Mets ate him up for breakfast. Apologies, folks. Your boy had to sneeze for a sec. Lindor gets on with his 28th double of the year, and for the first time in regular season Metropolitan history, the Mets have themselves 4 extra base hits to kick off the ball game. Lindor with a double. Jose Iglesias drives him in with his 11th double of the year. Then it's 2-0 because JDM rips his 18th double of the year. Then it's 4-0 because Pete Alonso rips a 24th home run of the year, a 2-run shot, a towering 471-foot bomb for Polar Bear, who has now passed Aaron Judge for the most home runs among all players in Major League Baseball since the start of the 2019 season. Alonso with his 24th bomb of the year, second consecutive game for Alonso where he's contributing in the first inning, got the offense started for the Mets in their 5-3 victory yesterday with a 2-out, 1-run single driven in. Love that. Then we see today a 2-run shot, a towering shot by the Polar Bear himself to dead center. That gives the Mets an early 4-0 lead. Alonso, again, we were facing a Gomber that was not having his breaking pitches whatsoever. The fastball looked flat. This guy was simply batting practice for the Mets, and they took advantage. So the Mets, again, for the first time since 2000, NLCS Game 4, that the Mets have recorded their first 4 hits of the game being extra base hits. Yes, that is how long it's been, and yes, it has never happened in the regular season history for the New York Metropolitans. And Mark Vientos, who was oh so close to a home run of himself, just falls short on the warning track for the first out of the day. He would make up for it and then some later on in said ball game, which we're not complaining about there. Then we see Jeff McNeil rip his 21st double of the season. The Mets have another runner in scoring position, but that would be it there for the first. So, through the first inning, the first half inning of work, the Mets are up 4-0 in this ball game, and thankfully, they would never look back. We would see Brendan Rodgers get on with a 1-out single against David Peterson. Peterson looking for a sharp start with a lot of family and friends in attendance. The Colorado native who grew up in the hometown in the area there against those Rockies, probably grew up a Rockies fan too, I'd imagine, finally gets his first start in Coors as a Mets starter. The 28-year-old turned out a very solid outing from the Mets. Didn't give them as much length as I would have hoped, but still gave them a solid outing no less, and was an inning short of at least having himself a quality start. No less, the Mets here as we then get to the top of the second. Jose Iglesias is right back on base for the second time in as many innings, this time with a walk. Nothing else happens, however. Gomber gets through the work there. Then we see in the bottom of the second, with a pair of outs, Hunter Goodman gets on with a walk. That's all she wrote, though. A clean inning there for David Peterson. As we head to the third, Gomber is throwing batting practice yet again to Pete Alonso, who rips all of that one, gets a hanger for his 25th home run of the year. Pete Alonso is now the first New York Met in Mets history to record not one, but 2 home runs in the StatCast era of at least 450 feet or more. Really cool accolade there for Pete Alonso, who is now tied with David Wright for the most multi-home run games in Mets history. Yeah, a lot of really cool stuff with Alonso today on the statistical end, and for a guy that, again, has been far from clutch for the Mets this season. We talked about him plenty over the past couple weeks, pre-trade deadline, post-trade deadline a couple days ago with his comments to the media the other day saying now I'm on pace for 40 home runs. Well, you know what, Pete? You weren't then, you're getting closer now. Alonso with 25 home runs this season, right around 50 games or so left this season, maybe a little under. I'm not doing the math right now. It's okay. I'm no mathematician. I'm just a schmuck talking about baseball and loving it with you amazing Mets fans. But Alonso, with his 25th home run of the year, gives the Mets a 5-0 lead, and they're now up comfortably in this one. And this was truly never a game where I thought that they were going to let it slip away. It just did not have that vibe whatsoever. Yes, Jack Graham, sadly, we know the last 10 games of the year are the Phillies, Braves, and Brewers. It is a bloodbath because, of course, it is, because we're simply not allowed to have nice things. Hopefully, though, we see the Braves play similar baseball to how they did against the Brewers. Odds are that ain't going to happen against our Mets, but hey, one can hope, right? One can wish it. Well, as we see there, after that Alonso home run, nothing else transpires in the inning. Mets up 5-0 as we then head to the bottom of the third, and a Brendan Rodgers walk is all she wrote. Crazy thing about David Peterson, Jolly Olive, shout out to Jolly on Twitter, as always, and for all of his platforms. He threw out a really interesting stat on David Peterson, and again, a prime example of Peterson so far in his career and this season. David Peterson joins Chris Bassett as the only starting pitchers in baseball this season with at least 60 innings pitched, a sub-4 ERA, but at least a 1.4 whip. Oddly enough, David Peterson has allowed at least 7 base runners every single game he has started for the Mets this season. It is very, very bizarre. However, even with that being said, the Mets are now 9-3, I believe, in their past stretch of games for David Peterson when he is on the bump starting. So funny enough, Peterson, who has now pitched, I think, 12, 13 starts this season, the Mets have won the majority of his starts, but half the time it hasn't been just because of David Peterson giving us a masterclass of an outing, but rather him giving us a 5-and-dive outing, maybe six innings at most, where we're getting solid performance, giving up 2 tops, 3 earned runs. 9 out of 10 times, David Peterson has been a solid 5-inning pitcher for the Mets this season, but for him, it has been that lack of length, which is definitely something that we need for this bullpen. We all know it. David Peterson, no less, definitely deserves some flowers, however, for another solid outing. Just wish we got length, and that's why I'm not going to give him a overly high grade when we get to that point for our typical pitching grades, as we always do every single post-game show. Pardon me, everybody, that we saw in the fourth, we see Tyrone Taylor get on with a single. That's all she wrote. And then we see in the bottom of the fourth, Chris Bryant finally with not a Mickey Mouse single. It's a real one this time. That's all she wrote for the Rockies. We then head to the 5th inning, and we see with 2 outs, Pete Alonso gets his 3rd hit of the day. This time a single. Mark Vientos getting the start after the off day yesterday in the Mets 5-3 victory. Vientos, who has labored greatly with his defense in this road trip and was 0 for 10 going into today's game. 0 for 11 getting into this at bat. No longer. Vientos drives all of that one. He rips his 17th home run of the year, gives the Mets a 7-0 lead. Vientos, who again started the season with the Mets late with Brett Beatty first getting the keys out of the hot corner. Vientos is very much so not on pace for just 20 home runs this season, but he very well could find himself in the 25-30 home run range with the way that he continues to slug the way he does. Mark Vientos, we know the defense has been a problem lately. Thankfully, he also had a really nice play in the 9th inning too that I think Brendan Rodgers got on base safely. Someone got on base with an infield single, but it wasn't for a lack of effort on Vientos' end. Yes, his defense has been more of an issue lately in this road trip, but today was not an example of that. Today was an example of the Mark Vientos that has been the reason why all of us Mets fans have advocated for him to stay put as our everyday third baseman more often than not. Torrens then gets on with a single as Torrens started over Alvarez today. Made sense from the night game to the day game. Alvy will be starting tomorrow, game 1 against the Mariners more than likely. And then we see again the Mets are now up 7-0 in this ball game. A couple singles for Shunk and Tovar, and then a Brennan Rodgers walk allows the first run and the only run for the Rockies to score here that we see in the 5th inning. Thanks to Brent Doyle, Chris Bryant thankfully strikes out. So David Peterson, after giving up that run, strands runners on the corners, and the Mets are still up 7-1 in this ball game. As we then head to the 6th, Harrison Bader gets on with a single. Then we see with a couple outs, nothing else transpires actually. Bader was the lone hit that inning. And the bottom of 6 for the Mets, Adam Ottavino comes into play. And let's talk about Adam Ottavino because there's a lot of talk going on with Adam Ottavino. If you're wondering what's going on with Adam Ottavino, well, Adam, who has had a far from reliable season with the Mets, isn't all that happy that he could be partnered with in the coming days with guys like Sean Reed-Foley and Reed Garrett coming back. And we're going to expand on this later on in the show here, so I will be brief. But Adam, who is advocating for himself, utilizing his numbers, who I will give benefit of the doubt with, has been better as of late. But let's also not forget the context behind some of this with Adam Ottavino. Yes, he might have a scoreless outing, but that's because maybe he didn't finish his outing because he couldn't get out of his own mess. That has been a problem with him playing this year. Adam today got out of his own mess, but again, why are we causing a mess against the Colorado Rockies? He gives up a one-out single to Michael Toglia, who has killed the Mets this season. Toglia, let's not forget the 3 home... actually, let's forget that game, as a matter of fact, but he did hit a 3-home-run game against the Mets. The first time in Rockies history a switch hitter hit not 1, not 2, but 3 home runs in a game in Rockies history. That was back at Citi Field when the Mets, I think, either split or lost that series against the Rockies somehow, which is ridiculous. No less, Toglia then steals his 5th bag of the year. Hilliard gets on with a walk. Thankfully, though, Shunk lines out to end it. Adam Ottavino escapes his own jam, leaves 2 runners stranded as we then head to the top of the 7th. And in the top of the 7th, JD Martinez gets on with a walk. Then we see a injury delay as Peter Lambert, who was pitching for the Rockies, making the 3rd pitcher in as many days that the Rockies saw went down with injury. Game 1, it was the right-hander, and now today it's a reliever who came in for lawn relief there, and Peter Lambert, he exits today's game because of apparent injury. I wish him the best. I hope he's okay. Things just continue to go wrong as a surprise. Absolutely nobody there, and cores for the Rockies. The Mets get a walk from Luis Torrens. That's all she wrote, though. Then we see Ryan Stanek come in, and Ryan Stanek follows up his last strong outing with an even stronger one here, you could rightfully argue. He gets a quick 1-2-3 outing and strikes out a pair in doing so. Ryan Stanek, who's topping out high 90s on the gun, 98, 99 on that heater, is now set to face off against his former team in the Mariners starting tomorrow. Even though Stanek pitched today, I guarantee he will pitch in at least 1 game out of the 3-game set against the Mariners, and you have to hope that he has an edge on his side, which we know he will. A chip on his shoulder for Stanek, who did not pitch well whatsoever in the month of July, which led him to being dealt by the Mariners for, very little in return. Let's prove the Mariners wrong, and let's show that a fit in Queens is the best fit for Ryan Stanek. Hopefully we see a strong outing happen at least once against those M's in that key 3-game set. Harrison Bader then gets on with a hit by pitch that we see there in the next half inning, and this frustrated the hell out of me. It's the top of the 8th. Harrison Bader gets drilled right below the shoulder. It's right in this area here, folks, so right below the shoulder, in this, back of the lung, shoulder blade area, and that's a problem. Harrison Bader, in clear pain, slams his bat. Some fans of the 5 that were there were upset that Bader kicked the baseball out of frustration. You know what? If you guys want to take a 90-plus heat, straight up shoulder rib area, by all means go ahead and then let me know how you'd react. I think Harrison took it like a champ for a guy that's been hit many times in his major league career. He gets a first base just fine, and Harrison with that hit by pitch would be important because it leads to the Mets scoring another run. Tyrone Taylor with an opposite field double, his 15th of the year, and another extra base hit for the Mets today. It feels like they're milling it at this point. Lindor then drives in the 8th run of the day for the Mets as they go up 8-1 thanks to an RBI single. Bader comes in to score, and then Jose Iglesias continues the offensive party as he drives in a run with a sac fly. The Mets are now up 9-1. We see JDM and Alonso strike out back-to-back to end it. Chris Bryant and Jacob Stallings get on that we see in the ninth with back-to-back hit by pitches. This is, mind you, after Danny Young thankfully pitched a scoreless previous inning. Danny Young pitched 2 scoreless innings for the Mets today in the 8th and the 9th inning. He got the job done there, which we absolutely love to see. Mets offensively do nothing in the 9th, and then we see in the bottom of the 9th with 2 outs, Ezekiel Tovar, the best hitter that you could rightfully argue for the Rockies, along with Brent Doyle and others, gets on with a single. So does Brennan Rodgers, who's been having a solid year as well. But speaking of the devil and Brennan Doyle, he goes down, striking out, and the Mets win this one again by a final score of 9-1. I definitely want to know what is everybody's key takeaway from this one for sure. Let's see. It might be your connection. Oh, am I cutting out? Oh, what's happening here? I'm glitchy. Okay. Let's see. He's okay. What happened? What happened, everybody? Did I just glitch for a second? Did my audio glitch or did my visuals glitch? If you guys could let me know that in the chat, I'd greatly appreciate it. That way I know if I need to repeat myself with anything or not. Trudeau with the $2 hollow, thank you so much. He says, one Vientos homers, Cole has flashbacks. LFGM. You're damn right Cole has flashbacks. The same way Cherno is salivating at the mouth of the thought of talking about Mark Vientos and postgame today. I appreciate that. Going in and out. Oh, it's audio. You're good? Okay, so some people are saying I'm good. Some people are saying I'm not. Oh, people need to leave, then come back in. That might be it. That might. Yeah, I don't know what audio issue there was, if at all, everybody. I do believe that we are okay, though. My microphone continues to cut in and out according to Ricky. I think you need to fast forward. I assume we're all... Actually, this is how I'll know. Give me 1 second, folks, and then we'll continue on with the show. Okay, I think we're good on the audio. If there are any issues, guys, please be genuine and please let me know. Because, again, I want to make sure that this is as enjoyable and as ingestible of a postgame for you guys as I always typically do. Again, if there isn't at least one audio issue, we have something going wrong, right? Chris, I will definitely check that out, my man. Thank you so much. Again, major shout out to Chris Scotty in the chat. Great member and friend of mine. For those that don't know Chris, in this story, just over the past couple weeks, he had the chance and actually got the yes in a beautiful fashion from his fiance at Citi Field, proposing right there on the field. They're rocking the same jerseys together with their last name. Just a gorgeous thing. Shout out to you, Chris, and your fiance and your entire family once again. That is absolutely fantastic. So happy to hear that. Yes, I definitely need to update those emojis for sure. And Kevin, I think that's completely fair. Sadly, the last couple times that I've done it, they don't save for whatever reason. I must be a hiccup on my end that I will definitely intend to once more. Not a problem. But again, everybody, may this stream, what a great night for Alonso. He backed up his talk, and let's see if he can continue with it. You said it best, Josh, and again, I appreciate you chiming in, my friend. Let's continue to break down this ball game, everybody, because as we said, there was a lot on the offensive end, and my roughly 250 live viewers, if you guys could help us get to 100 likes in the live show if we haven't gone there already, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you guys and gals again for doing exactly that. But let's talk more a bit on the offensive end. Let's talk more on the pitching end. Before we do that, however, there are 2 quick things I need to showcase for each and every one of you, one of which is the following, and that is us just appreciating this. Yes, guys, starting today with our post-game coverage, every single day, we will be doing live updates looking at the wildcard standings. It's going to get repetitive for some, and you might hate it to many, but regardless, we're going to do it mainly because, again, now we're really in this stretch of not only every game mattering, but everyone is scoreboard watching. Everyone is watching each game. A lot of fans are now at the point where they weren't already. Now they're really focusing on what the Padres, the Diamondbacks, the Braves, the Cardinals, the Giants, and even to an extent the Pirates are doing, them 4.5 games out. The Mets, who were 11 games below 500 this season, that were 10 games behind the Atlanta Braves, they're in the standings, have climbed all the way up, all the way back, and while the Padres and the Diamondbacks seem like they're never going to lose a game again, thankfully for the Mets, they have the Atlanta Braves to thank for their lack of play lately. So Mets back in that wild card spot by a half game, and they can continue to roll here. They will stay afloat in that position. And how this wild card configuration is currently, the Mets thankfully have some things in their favor. And one of the things that they have in their favor is, in fact, the St. Louis Cardinals tiebreaker that we mentioned a couple days ago. The Mets winning that one-off game there to secure the series sweep against them and the Cardinals means that should both those teams have the same record at the end of the season, the Mets are in and the Cardinals are out. That could be vital for this Mets team versus the Cardinals down the stretch here, as both these teams are going to be neck and neck competing for said wild card spot. And then the Braves, the Mets have at least one more series against them. That's going to be huge. It's right before the end of the season. That could be make or break for them as well. But I think the Diamondbacks Padres series a couple weeks from now is what really is going to make or break a lot for this Mets team. Absolutely, when we evaluate the playoff standings and how everything is currently configured. But all right, everybody, before we get into more on the offensive end, our key takeaways on those numbers, let's now take a quick moment to hear from today's video sponsor, our great friends on the channel, America's #1 sportsbook at BetUS.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Guys, I did want to mention this. Actually, I'll wait till after this segment. That's perfectly fine because I don't need to say it now. Everybody, if you haven't already, what are you doing? If you're a sports bettor, we got you covered at BetUS by clicking that link down below. That way you too get a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000 with our friends here. If you guys go out your way to check out the latest WardyNYM 2-leg parlay, let's see how you guys can do tonight. And we're going to take a look at the slate of games that are, have yet to start or are about to start here for MLB. So let's go ahead and do exactly that. Last night, I'm trying to remember what we picked if we did a 2-leg parlay. What were the games that we thought were standouts yesterday? I'm honestly trying to, if anyone remembers in the show, I greatly appreciate that too, so that way we can stay on track here. I know that we hit a couple days ago. Yesterday, oh, this is why, because some of these games haven't happened yet. Okay, Baltimore Orioles that we said yesterday, I was hammering them money line over the Blue Jays. That holds true. And I was also saying the Cardinals over the Rays. Not that I wish it, but I think Tommy Pham is going to go scorched earth against his former club, being with a former team, now back with them in the Cardinals, facing a former team now in the Rays. I really like both those matchups. Again, not that I want the Cardinals to win, but being rational, putting bias aside when looking at the wild card, I think the Cardinals are going to win this one against the Rays, the same way that I think that we are going to see the Baltimore Orioles as well find themselves in the win column. If the O's and the Orioles win, that is your 2-leg parlay hit of the day, folks. I'm going to put 20 down on both those odds. The Orioles, which I love at the odds right now, are minus 104 on the money line. Dean Kremer's on the bump, so that's the main reason why, but it's against the Blue Jays, and their pitching staff isn't anything stellar either, so sign me up. I'll take that matchup. I'll take those odds for sure. And the Cardinals, that's going to win you some nice money, folks. At least you're going to be doubling if you're putting 20 down. So good luck to you all that enter these bets. Make sure you bet responsibly should you tail, and if you do, make sure you do it with our great friends here at BetUS. But now let's hop back into this one, folks, and let's get into the hitting. I have talked usually on the pitching end first, but I want to highlight the offense today, along with the defense, actually. Jacob, thank you so much for that. I will check it out here in a second. Greatly appreciate that. You like the jingle? You might make GSU cry. Yes, GSU will be very upset if he hears the jingle again. I had a comment from a loyal follower yesterday. I want to say her name is Donna. I could apologize if it's the wrong name. I saw a comment saying, Wardy, I love you, but that jingle is like absolutely horrendous or something. And I know that's how some fans feel, and that's okay. But you know what? I appreciate you guys, regardless on if you love it or hate it, for the ones that hate it especially, still making sure they're chiming in this show and having a good time. So I appreciate that. Thank you guys. As we see on the offensive end, we have a lot of key takeaways there for sure. But I do want to highlight one specific thing defensively here briefly, and that was Tyrone Taylor's great range that we saw in the corner outfield today. In left field, Tyrone Taylor robbed the Rockies of at least one, if not multiple hits. The Rockies did a great job on robbing the Mets of multiple hits, including we saw, I believe, in the 8th or 9th inning, Luis Torrens, who would have had at least a double opposite field, robbed of a sliding catch. I forgot who caught it. Great catch by the Rockies outfielder. Tyrone Taylor with some great outfield length and that we saw stretched out there in left field, going all over the place. Tyrone, we love to see that, baby. And that is exactly why Tyrone Taylor is pretty much as good as you're going to get for an all-around 4th outfield option on the defensive end, with his ability to hit fastballs really well and have that clutch gene with 2-out hitting at times. D-Mac with a $5 haul. Thank you so much, D-Mac. He says, my takeaway is the following. Bench guys when they're cold or look tired yields a balanced attack. Hopefully Nemo comes back hot. Yes, I think Nemo has a chance to have a solid series, but at the same time, this Mariners team is so nasty with their starting staff that I could also see Brandon Nemo striking out 3 times tomorrow if he's starting. We'll find out. I love Brandon. We all know how clutch he has been this season, but he has been in a rut quite bad since post All-Star break. Just striking out at a great clip right now. Chris Scotty with the $5 haul. Thank you so much again, Chris. Chris says, Mets could be the first by the end of the month. I mean, hey, if things go right, and then you got 7 games against the Phillies down the stretch, look, crazier things have happened in Mets history, but I will say this, I don't foresee the Mets to win the division this year. Let's focus on just making playoffs, but take it day by day. That is easily the most important thing. Just take everything day by day. And that's what I got to say about that. But all right, guys, let's get into it on the offensive end, because you get a hit, you get a hit, you get a hit, you get a hit. Might as well call yourself Oprah Winfrey. However, I don't know if that's a good thing depending on who you talk to. I will say this, though, on the Mets, when it came to giving out gifts, the Mets were giving out hits beautifully. And by giving out, I shouldn't say the Mets were, it was actually the Rockies. The Mets were the ones serving up hits because they were hitting left, right, and center without a problem. Extra base hits galore for the Mets today as they out-hit the Rockies 11-7. They had themselves a, that was from yesterday, actually, so let me double-check today's Baseball Savant. I had outdated by a second there. So the Mets hits today were as follows: 13 of the Rockies 7, a 311 expected batting average for the Rockies 239. Lindor with a 2-for-5 day with the double in the RBI, a 256 average, a 787 OPS for Lindor, who had the heroics late last night with huge opposite field first pitch swinging 2-run single hitting Cisco Lindor. We love to see that. Jose Iglesias batting the 2-hole today, looking sharp in doing so. A pair of RBIs and a hit, a run scored for Mr. Jose Iglesias, and a walk, no strikeouts. A 333 average, an 873 OPS for a guy that was being paid less than I think anyone else actually actively playing, not named Luis Torrens, which is crazy to say. JD Martinez, 1-for-4 with a run scored and a double, an RBI and a walk, a pair of strikeouts, but a 259 average and a 784 OPS for JDM, who, given the off day yesterday, Jesse Winker thrived with 3 hits. Now we fast forward to today, facing the lefty. Makes sense why Winker wasn't going to get the start at least, and that worked beautifully for JDM and the Mets. Pete Alonso, speaking of things working beautifully, look no further than the polar bear himself. Pete Alonso, who we have heavily critiqued at times this season, just because we want to see the polar bear actually live up to his name and live up to his expectation that he is built from a great year after year seasons, putting up big home run numbers, putting up big RBI numbers, but also stepping up when we need him to. Alonso this season has not stepped up nearly enough in clutch situations, runners in scoring position, 2 outs, high leverage, everything that you need Alonso to do. He hasn't done all that much this season, but a best way for that to change is a game like today, where it's not 1 but 2 towering tanks, 471 feet, 450 feet for the second one. You love to see it. Pete Alonso with a massive 3-hit, 2 home run, 3 RBI, 3-run scored day, 0 walks, a pair of strikeouts, a 246 average, and an 807 OPS. Mark Vientos, 1-for-5 with the run scored, a home run, and the 2 RBIs. His 17th home run of the year for Vientos now has him up to 273 on the average and 871 on the OPS. Luis Torrens, 1-for-4, because Torrens is always going to hit because he's literally the best backup catcher in Major League Baseball. It's not close. 278 average, 801 OPS. We love you, Luis. Jeff McNeil, 1-for-5 with the McDouble. Jeff, what he has been able to do post All-Star break has been notable, because the one thing that we've noticed is not only the power with Jeff McNeil, but it's been able to actually pull and drive those line drives. He is not just trying to slap them for the sake of getting on base anymore. He's not just trying to hit them where they ain't. Jeff McNeil is going back to being that true line drive hitter, and that's ultimately leading to these natural doubles that are happening, because he's barreling baseballs better. He's seen pitches better at the plate. And for McNeil, who I heavily criticized plenty this season as well, that again, I advocate all first half lawn to get off our roster, is thankfully making myself and other fans eat our words, and that's a good thing, because that means it's leading to the Mets having success. That's all we care about as Mets fans. I don't care who you are on this roster. If you are on the team, I want you to succeed. It is simple as that. For Jeff McNeil, he did that today, and I appreciate that. A 236 average and a 669 OPS. Harrison Bader, a 1-for-3 with a run scored. The hit by pitch is what led to that run scored. 271 average, 720 OPS. Tyrone Taylor, 2-for-4 with the run scored on the double, a strikeout at 242 average and a 692 OPS. That is what you got on the offensive end for the Mets today, who were pretty sharp when we look at runners in scoring position. As a matter of fact, when we take a look at the Mets with runners in scoring position today, they were 4-for-7 and they left 7 on base still in their 9-1 victory. Mind you, this is the same Mets team that yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, had at least 4 hits with runners in scoring position too. So back-to-back days with very solid production of, if not 500, then close, if not more than 500, and your success rate with runners in scoring position. Hopefully that continues for the Mets as they have a heated 3-game set there against the Seattle Mariners. And a huge takeaway there with the Mariners is simply being, it's not going to be easy to get home. It's not going to be easy to get home runs there. It's not going to be easy to get offense, at least against that starting staff on paper. So that's why these games are all the more vital to make sure that the Mets not only secure the series victory, but that the Mets can try to nip away and try to be pesky there in this series. Look, if the Mets go out and slug all day long in Seattle, I'm for it. I'm just saying I'm not expecting that to happen right away with how good that starting staff is. They have some solid relievers for sure too. It's going to be a tough battle there against the Mariners, in which Sunday night's game will be live broadcasted on ESPN, which absolutely no one wants to see whatsoever. Literally, ask one person that isn't officially affiliated with ESPN how much they're dying for ESPN coverage to listen to everybody talk about everything but the game itself. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it, but a crazy stat about this will be the first time in 20 years that a Sunday night baseball game is taking place with the Seattle Mariners in Seattle. Yes, you heard that correctly. 20 years. It hasn't happened since 2004, pretty much since the last time the Mariners were relevant much at all, so I guess that makes sense. Now, I don't mean that as a slight, similar to the Mets, just like no championship pedigree during this time, and no playoff runs of pretty much any ilk whatsoever that we know with Seattle, famously. For the Mariners, definitely wish them well, but I am not wishing them well in the next coming days here against our Mets. So let's see how these two do against each other. Very much so looking forward to that big matchup. Again, the Mets lose that series, that's not ideal. If they win, though, that's huge against those Mariners, so we will see how they fare, everybody. And now let's get into the pitching, and then from the pitching, folks, we will then get into our live callers there shortly after, because we don't have any active prospect updates for you. Games are just about to start, if not haven't started yet. And in the case of Brandon Sproat, who's about to start right now for AAA Syracuse, that is in a rain delay, so I have no clue when that game is officially going to start, if at all. But on the pitching end, let's talk about it, because David Peterson again with another pretty prototypical David Peterson outing. A very fascinating pitcher for the Mets this year, which he hasn't been overly reliable on just great stuff, but he has been fairly reliable on his consistency, and that has been a standout for sure. His consistency has been able to give you a solid 5-6 innings pretty much every time out there, excluding a start or two this year, and Peterson has been pretty much where you want him to be. I would like length, that goes without saying, and that's why David Peterson, again, without even deep diving the numbers, 5 innings of 4 hit, 1 earned run, 3 walk, 5 strikeout ball is going to give David Peterson, for me at least, a 6 out of 10 rating. The only reason why I don't have him higher at all is because he didn't give the Mets length today. Also don't love the 3 walks. Anywhere from 5.5 to 6 out of 10 I think is respectable for him personally. But to be back home in his hometown there against those Rockies with his family in attendance, I'm really happy that Peterson was able to get the W, which we love to see, and ultimately the Mets get the W in this one. Adam Ottavino, we saw with a scoreless inning, but let's not forget Adam and, just a little wishy-washy of an inning at the same time. Stanek was masterful. Danny Young, again, worked out of his own jams. He looked brilliant. And Young, we're going to talk about in a second here before getting into live callers, so I will be brief with this. For David Peterson, he topped out 95, sat 89 there on the 4-seam today, and that was actually slightly down on the velo today, but not a problem. Changeup was 24%, mind you. 4-seam was overly worked today in comparison to the other pitches. Not in a bad way, but 44% was his most dominant pitch in the fastball. The changeup, which he utilized the second most at 24%, topped out 85, sat 84. Slider, which was sitting around 17% of his arsenal today, topped out 86, sat 85. Sinker, 10%, topped out 95, sat 92. And the curveball, just 5%, only threw it 4 times. 80%, topped out 80 and sat 88, right around 79 or so on the season. Pardon me. Yeah, what am I saying? Topped out 80 on the velo, sat right around 79 there on the velocity. David Peterson was able to induce a 67% whiff rate on this changeup. So brilliant work by Peterson today to get a solid swing and miss on that changeup, especially. Worked those batters well against the Rockies. Had a 35% whiff rate on the fastball, the slider, and the sinker. Slider and sinker were 33%, but basically the same. Did not get any bite on that we saw there on the curveball, but he only threw it 4 times, so who cares? A nice whiff rate there for the changeup. If we could get the walks down, again, if you don't walk those 3 batters, that's another inning of work for David Peterson that he would be able to get through. So the walks, just got to get them down. Other than that, not too much of a complaint with David Peterson, just nothing overly dominant for the most part. So that's what we have there with DP. Now, folks, let's get into our final segment before taking live callers for the next 20, 30 minutes, however long or short it may be. And that is the latest updates in Metsland, everybody. Let's break down exactly that. Because as I mentioned earlier in the show, Adam Ottavino knows that his time with the Mets may be coming to, in his case, a premature end before the end of the week. And the reason for that would be because of the fact that, yes, we have guys in Reed Garrett, Sean Reed-Foley, and eventually Danil Nunez all returning to this Mets bullpen. And with how things are currently looking, the Mets will be bringing them all back up into the pen, and then they will configure based on basically who's outperforming others, who has options, things along those lines. So Adam Ottavino, I will say, and I've been saying this for the past week, I don't think he is the odd man out right now between Danny Young, Alex Young, and himself for the next two relievers to be back in this bullpen. But I don't think that he's a slam dunk to stay here long-term at all either. Adam spoke to Mike Puma in the New York Post and had this to say about potentially being DFA'd with the upcoming bullpen configuration with Reed Garrett returning against the Mariners, Sean Reed-Foley returning shortly after that, and Danil Nunez, who is very close to beginning a rehab assignment sooner than later as well. He said, and I quote, "I think it would be foolish to let me go." Mind you, this is the same Adam Ottavino that tried to restructure his contract with the Mets after the 2023 season. David Stearns promptly said no thank you, let him be a free agent. And because Adam really wanted to stay in New York and was doing SNY segments, doing everything he could be right in the Mets' face to make sure that they couldn't let him go yet, they signed him on a restructured deal for a lesser AAV to stay in New York, in which he's a New York native. Makes sense. He's not getting any younger. 38, 39 years of age in Adam Ottavino, the longtime Colorado Rocky who had a scoreless inning against his former club, said the following: "It occurred to me that it could happen, but you can't control it. As far as I'm concerned, I'm still throwing the ball the way I want to for the most part, so I just have to try to live with the results." Ottavino, mind you, prior to today's outing, has pitched to a 2.62 ERA in his first 2 years with the Mets that we saw with a 1.09 whip, while locking down 15 saves across 132 appearances. But when the Mets bullpen struggled mightily during their brutal, tough month of May, so did Adam Ottavino, who posted a north of a 10 ERA, a 2 whip in 12 outings. He had a horrendous May, has had solid months outside that, but the context is important with Adam Ottavino. Yes, maybe he hasn't given up runs in the past however many outings, but he hasn't done it clean and a good chunk of those outings though either. So that's where I have some frustration with Adam Ottavino. He just isn't a reliable option for the Mets in this bullpen entirely. And now with the Mets trying to figure out what they're going to do with this bullpen, they did reach a little bit of a middle, at least in the interim with Adam Ottavino, as they are now going to utilize him in more low leverage type situations like what we saw today, for example, which again does make sense. We need guys to eat innings, but the case of Adam Ottavino, who knew that his day was going to be coming with being out of high leverage more into low leverage spots, he said it was going to happen sooner rather than later. He can only go on for so long in those situations. But Adam, who again had a scoreless outing today, not the sexiest one, is advocating to stay in this Mets bullpen and was able to sway Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns enough with his impressive advanced metrics. Adam, who is very known for his advanced numbers that he utilizes. You know how some of you guys hate when I utilize expected ERA, SIRA, whip, all these baseball savant numbers as well. Adam knows all of them to a T. He's very fascinated with all the newfound information, and that's how he goes about orchestrating not only his release point, orchestrating how he goes about himself as a pitcher, but the results as well. If he's going to look and say, oh, I gave up a run, what was the context of that run? That's something that he really hammers down with. I like Adam Ottavino a lot as a person. He's had success with the Mets, a great 2022 season, a piss poor 2023, overworked, couldn't handle back-to-back, just was horrendous without Edwin Diaz, that we know. This season, Jekyll and Hyde and what you're getting from Adam. And again, do I think it makes sense to a degree to part ways with Adam Ottavino? Yes, I do. But again, it'll be because of the Mets riding the hot hand and it making sense at the time. We know that this bullpen configuration is still going to change a decent amount from now up until the season concludes. But in the interim, Reed Garrett will be returning this weekend against the Mariners. Sean Reed-Foley is nipping out the heels to return as well. Danil Nunez was right behind them, should return the Mets sometime over the next couple weeks. So with those guys returning, Adam Ottavino, Danny Young, Alex Young are the three guys to look at, but knowing that Alex Young and Danny Young have options, those will be the X factors I'm sure come into play versus Adam Ottavino. So we'll see what happens on that front. Adam Ottavino, is he staying in the Mets bullpen for now? Yes. Will he stay in the Mets bullpen beyond a week and a half, 2 weeks from now? That's a good question that we will find out in the coming days, but I want to know your initial reactions, everybody. Do you think Adam Ottavino should be staying in this Mets bullpen over their current options in Danny Young, Alex Young as well, which Reed Garrett, Sean Reed Foley, Daniel Nunez, all working their way back from injury. Let me know in the chat. Thank you so much as always, everybody. And Rebecca, I'll reach in the middle with you, okay? If you remind me before the end of the live show, we will conclude our live show and conclude our live caller segments with a post-game jingle, but you have to remind me, Rebecca. It's up to you. So again, I'll leave that. That's the ball's in your court, Rebecca. That's how we'll make it happen. Sean, thank you so much for the $5 haul. He says, I'm Ozuna from the Braves. Mets are better than them dirtbags in Atlanta. Couldn't agree more. Appreciate the donation. I know we got Braves fans in the chat. I appreciate you guys that are respectful. The ones that aren't, it's okay. You probably got offended by the things I say, but haven't seen a lot of Braves fans this year. Almost like that they went back from the freaking corners that they came out of outside of Donta, who's a great supporter on the channel and a member, all because the Braves are having a less than ideal season with a plethora of injuries that they've endured and a lack of consistency that has been very apparent for the team for a good portion this season. But all right, everybody, it is that time. Let's get into it. Let's break down the latest with our live callers. So now, folks, for our official live caller segment, all you guys have to do in order to call in is the following steps. I'm going to be putting a StreamYard link available in the live show in the chat pin in the YouTube chat here in a second. If you're watching this live on Twitter X, but you would like to call in, you have to hop over to the YouTube channel to click the link. That's the only way to do it. I'm going to be taking your live callers, guys. When you call in, all you have to do is the following steps. Click that link, put your name in, make sure your camera's on, even though I'm just going to be showcasing the audio for you guys, and make sure that you have your questions or comments ready lined up. I want to rapid fire this and get to as many of you guys that I can. If we have a long discussion where I say spend 10 minutes with one individual, while I have no problem doing that, I do feel bad for my other callers patiently waiting, one, and two, I want to make sure that we get to as many fans that we possibly can. So if you guys got some key things to say on the Mets, a key question for your guy Wardy, or something in the realm of Mets land that is relevant, make sure you call in and have your voice heard. So let's do exactly that, everybody. Frank, how do you donate? You just donate by going in the chat, and there will be a little money button that you can click, and it gives you different donation options. Never asking, but always appreciate it, and should you go out of your way to do so, I kindly thank you in advance. Thank you guys for all the donations, the memberships, and the endless support there. I greatly appreciate it, folks. But all right, everybody, let's get into it. Let's get into the live callers. I want to hear from you Mets fans. I promised you we'd do this, so let's make it happen. And this is where we're actually going to cut things off now for my replay viewers. I apologize, everybody. If you're watching this on replay, you're likely going to see the segment, unless you watch within the first hour or two after it's been live, it'll be cut down to less than an hour. You will not see the live callers, but don't worry. We will be having more live caller segments, maybe either this week, if not next week on the channel. So stay tuned. We're trying to make sure we do them every single week. And we're not doing, if we're not going to bring on a special guest for, say, a week span, then we have to do live callers at minimum, as we always do each and every week on the WardyNYM platform. So here comes the link, everybody. It is now going to be posted here in the live chat. Once more, when you guys get in here, make sure that you go ahead and click that link. But to my replay viewers, I want to know your key takeaways down below from this 9-1 victory. And again, if you guys are opposed to me cutting things off for my replay viewers, voice it down below in the comments. I love to hear it. I want to know if there are more fans than what I initially think are opposed to it, if they outweigh things at all. Thank you so much for watching. Live viewers, let's get those callers. To my replay viewers, let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.